welcome to the stage President and Chief Executive Officer Fong Lee.
Good morning, everyone. I am fired up. I got up at 4 a.m. this morning, which is an hour earlier than I usually do. It was like the day before Christmas and you just can't sleep. You're so worked up and excited and ready to roll. That's how I felt this morning. I went to the gym and I worked out. There's one other person in there. I was like, yes. This is a big day. This is a big day for us. This is a big day for our customers. Thank you for being here. For our partners, for our potential customers, for our employees, for our shareholders, for our analysts, for Bitcoin enthusiasts, for data enthusiasts, this is big. This is big. We revealed this year the rebranding of MicroStrategy into strategy. And I think the timing was perfect. By the way, I went by the swag store yesterday. Someone told me somebody spent $700 at our swag store. I got the shoes, which you can't get anymore. I got the tie, which you can still get. I got some socks on. I got the pin. I have it all. I am all strategied up. This company was founded 36 years ago as MicroStrategy. We went public 27 years ago. This is our 5th annual Bitcoin for corporations. The first 2 were virtual, if you remember. The next 2 and this one are in person. And this is our first ever strategy world. And it represents a new day, a new brand, and a new era, and a simplification of who we are. And so I want to talk today first and celebrate a little bit about our growth. We have done some amazing things over the last 36 years, over the last 5 years, and over the last year. And those who are shareholders know this chart. Some of you may not know how much success we've seen in 5 years. We have outperformed every S&P 500 company in the world. If you compare us and our returns since what we call the Bitcoin standard era, which is August 10th, 2020. And it hasn't really been that close. Like, these are video game numbers, 3,090% appreciation in our stock. And, it's great. I love it. Personally satisfying, professionally satisfying. But the number of people who came up to me yesterday and said, hey, you have released me financially. You've helped me pay for my kids' college. You've helped me retire. It's just wonderful. It just feels so good. And by the way, the performance is even more extraordinary when you compare us with the rest of the world. Anyone here heard of a company called NVIDIA? They're awesome. They're in the middle of the AI transformation, which we'll talk about. We outperformed them by more than 3x in the last 5 years. 3 times. And we're the most interesting company. This is the part that people don't always think about with us. We have transformed the capital markets. We've transformed digital markets, right? We are, with our trading volume as a percentage of market cap, the second most in all of the S&P 500. And if you look at our options interest, the open interest on put and call options, by far the most as a percentage of market cap compared to the S&P 500. This is where it gets really interesting. Let's compare us to the technology universe. We're a technology company, right? Strategy versus every other technology company on an ARR basis over the last 5 years has outperformed a lot of our peers and a lot of our competitors. And I know you're all sitting here, a large part of this audience are our software customers, our BI customers. Like, that performance is great, and I'm so happy I bought some strategy shares in the last 5 years. But what does it do for our software business? That's what I'm going to try to bridge today and share to you why this performance, this extraordinary performance, is important. All right? A lot of these folks here, right, on this chart, are our partners. Amazon, Google, Microsoft are hyperscalers, right? The next one, Apple, is a big partner of ours, and we started partnering with Apple when they released iOS and the iPhone and the iPad. We were the first ever enterprise application released on the iPad. But for those 4 companies, we have the largest balance sheet in the technology world. We have $50 billion of extremely liquid, accretive, appreciating Bitcoin on our balance sheet. And what does that do for us as a software company? It's a war chest. Allows us to invest, allows us to grow, more so than some of our competitors in this space. Salesforce, SAP, IBM, and others. $50 billion. Remember, 5 years ago, we started this journey with $500 million. We've increased our balance sheet 1,000 times. Think of anything you've done more. 1,000 times in 5 years, 1,000 times in 10 years. And what this really represents, and what we're talking about today, is the digital transformation of our company. We digitally transformed our balance sheet. We digitally transformed our capital markets. We digitally transformed the capital markets. We digitally transformed investor relations, right? Like a lot of you here are investors. Last week, on Thursday, we had our Q1 earnings call. We had 150,000 people show up to our earnings call. Mike's mentioned this before. I remember 2015, we had 40 people show up to our earnings call, and 10 of those were employees. We've increased the interest in the company 5,000x, even more than we've increased the balance sheet, and even more than we've increased our share price. We have digitally transformed how companies interact with shareholders, with yourselves. Thank you to the True North folks for putting on a great event yesterday. You represent the digital transformation of investor relations. Gone are the days where you get information trickled out to you once a month. Here are the days when you get data delivered to you about our company and our KPI and our metrics every 15 seconds. That's how companies should be interacting with their shareholders. That's why we created this website. That's why we created our digital applications and our mobile application. And by the way, we wouldn't have been able to build these beautiful interfaces if it wasn't for our team of amazing software engineers that build our software, that build our BI tools and applications. Not only do we believe in digitally transforming the capital markets and investor relations, we believe that with Bitcoin, we can digitally transform how we interact with corporations and with competitors, right? Like if I was to tell you, hey, I found an unlock to increase your stock price 1,000, 3,000 times in 5 years, and I told you, by the way, I'm going to tell everybody how we did it. Create an open source playbook and set of documents, and hold a 3-day conference every year to try to get everyone else to do the same thing. You might say, hey, can you just keep that all to yourself so you can keep doing this thing and you be the only one? No. Because we believe in transparency of information. We believe in digitally transforming data and information and providing it transparently to everybody. That was the core of how MicroStrategy was founded. That's the core strategy as a company. And that's why we run Bitcoin for Corporations. Because we think the more the merrier. Let's share, let's have some fun. Speaking of fun, this is Otto and this is Maxi. People have asked me directly, there's a whole bunch of stuff on X, what the heck is Maxi? Maxi is not a skunk. Maxi is not a raccoon. I can see where you're going with that. Maxi is not a bear representing the bear market. Those who know Bitcoin, Maxi is a honey badger. Maxi is a honey badger, and if you don't know what a honey badger is, I will excuse that. A honey badger is the most fierce, competitive, fighting force in the animal kingdom. And if you're like, sure, whatever, isn't that a lion? Go YouTube a video. Honey badger versus lion, some of you have seen it, and you will understand why the honey badger is the symbol of Bitcoin and the symbol of strategy. It's all about having fun. So those who are going to stay with us hopefully tonight, we're going to have an awesome party. And, you know, it's fun to win. It's even more fun to celebrate winning. So let's do some of that together tonight. I'm looking forward to the party tonight. All right. So what does this mean for strategy of the company? For many of you, you're getting to interact with our 250 or 300 employees here. We have 1,500 employees around the world. We've got 4,000 customers around the world. We have millions of users of strategy around the world. Number one, it helps us hire and retain great people. You think after hearing that speech from me, people don't want to come work for the best company in the world? I hope you all get a chance to meet some of our employees. We have some that have been here 25 years. We have some who have been with us 10 years, 15, 10, whatever the number is. They're awesome. I can go out there and hire anybody I want in the universe to come work for the best performing company in the universe. And not only that, when we get them, they stay. Last year, we tracked this metric called voluntary turnover. Our voluntary turnover in the company was the lowest it's ever been in my 10-year history being here. It also allows us to focus on bold innovation. And that's what we're going to talk about a lot today, this morning, is how are we innovating as a company, right? No longer do I have to focus on what happens tomorrow, the next week, the next month, our quarterly earnings, although they're still quite important. Even the next year, we get to make the bets that are going to make this company better, that are going to make life better for our shareholders, they're going to make life better for the world and civilization because we decided to move our balance sheet to Bitcoin. We'll also attract some of the greatest partners in the world. All right. You probably saw the list of the folks who are sponsors and partners of strategy at Strategy World. It's bigger than it's ever been before. Everybody wants to be part of a winning team. All right. I want to thank AWS, Cantor Fitzgerald, who's sponsoring our party tonight, and Jay Wood Capital Advisors for being our titanium sponsors of World. Thank you to those guys. We'll talk more about partnerships later. We can withstand threats. In a world that is increasingly changing faster and faster through technology, through geopolitical challenges, through economic challenges, we withstand the threats. When you have $50 billion in your treasury versus $500 million in your treasury, when the macroeconomic winds change, right, when there's instability and a customer says, hey, you know, we had a tough quarter, are you okay with doing this deal next quarter? Right? When an employee says, hey, you know, I have changes that I have to go through in my life, can you help? Right? When, generally speaking, there are multiple threats to the organization, we can withstand them because we can plan long term. And we can invest in customer success, right? We have about 60 folks here today that are part of a brand new organization that we stood up at the end of 2023 called Customer Success. When our competitors and other companies are removing their organizations responsible for customer success, when they're charging you for customer success, we're investing in a team and giving that to you. And that's a long-term commitment. That's something we're very focused on. It's making sure the customers here do better and better. And really, what is this all about? This is about freedom. Bitcoin is freedom. A digital transformation of your capital structure provides freedom to strategy. A 3,000% return in 3 years provides freedom economically to our shareholders. And I will argue that what we are going to do to the data world provides freedom to your data and to your intelligence and to your information. That's important today, more important than ever. "36 years ago when we were founded on a singular vision, intelligence everywhere. And the company has toiled through good times and bad times, trying to make this vision a reality. I think today, in 2025, strategy with our digital transformation with our capital structure, with $50 billion worth of Bitcoin, with the advent of generative AI and the technology waves of change that that is creating, we are closer than ever to finally realizing this vision. And so, who better to talk about the vision of the company that he established 36 years ago, and to talk about how that's going to change the world of Bitcoin, of capital, of data, of information, than our very own founder and executive chairman, Michael Saylor. Good to have you here.
Happy to be here. Wore the wrong shoes, I see.
Maybe you can sign mine later, though. I heard you were doing that last night.
I've signed a few.
All right. So, Mike, this is a big moment for the company, but as the founder, I imagine you're extraordinarily proud of what we've been able to build over 36 years, and especially in the last 5 years. And we just start with we rebranded the company this year from MicroStrategy to Strategy. Why did we do it? And what is the significance of the rebrand?
You know, a great principle of design is the design's not perfect until there's nothing left to take away. And I think Apple proved that with designs like the iPhone, where they just kept pushing the edge of the envelope. Can I take away the keypad? Can I take away one more button? And I think if you look at the history of great consumer products, the more elegant, the simpler it is, the more powerful it is. So when we looked at our brand, we realized that we had outgrown it. MicroStrategy made sense when we brought the company to the marketplace back in the early 90s. Micro was a forward-looking idea. We were a strategic consulting company, and Micro signified that we were going to incorporate technology into decision support. But of course, 30 years later, technology is in the fabric of everything. It was no longer necessary to signal that you had microprocessors backing what your product was. And, you know, we looked at all of the great brands in the world, Google, Amazon. We thought about people we can remember. Eventually, we remember them by their first name or their one name. Julius Caesar became Caesar. Napoleon Bonaparte became Napoleon. Madonna, Prince, Sting. We have an international customer base. We have an international shareholder base. And what we realized is we had the opportunity to take ownership of perhaps one of the greatest words in the English language, which is the language of commerce and technology in the world. So if you ask people, you know, give me 10 words in the English language that are universally positive, they connote insight, they're welcome in any conversation. You know, certainly one of the most powerful words in the English language is hope. But if you said, what's a powerful word in business, the most powerful word in business, I believe it's strategy. You can't be successful in business without strategy. You need an investment strategy. You need a technology strategy. You can't be successful as a superpower without a political strategy, a defense strategy. Strategy has just got incredible power. After 30 years of seeing people misspell the company name, they would spell it MicroStrategies. I used to meet our customers, and I would meet customers that have been doing business with us for 10 years, and they said, yeah, so you're from MicroStrategies? And so I had real market feedback, and my real world experience combined with my theoretical experience suggested to me that if you own strategy.com and if there is no greater company than you squatting on the strategy handle, then less is more. Take away the micro. Strategy is a word that it's much easier to spell, easier to say, easier to see, easier to remember, easier to type. And I think you can see it here at the conference when you look around and you see the strategy branding. One of the interesting nuances of words is if you want to make the word 4 times weaker, make it twice as long. When you stretch it, the font gets smaller. And so we've taken a word and we've made it 4 times stronger, and we've made it international. And you know, how many billions of school children will be taught how to spell strategy? And the answer is all of them. And how many, if you asked 1 billion people, do you react favorably to the word strategy? Every one of them. If you went to the same sample set and said, how many of you like MicroStrategy and think, how many of you think MicroStrategy is a good idea? And the answer is most people, 1% of them will recognize it, and half of them will think, why would I want a MicroStrategy when I could have a bigger, a macro strategy or a global strategy or a digital strategy? So we thought now is the time, because we do have this international need to communicate to 1 billion people. And we have, as we pointed out on our earnings call a few days ago, we now have 55 million beneficiaries in the world. And so it's time for us to go global. It's time for us to provide the world with a consumer brand that stands for empowerment, that stands for success, that's egalitarian, that's unifying, and that's powerful.
Thank you. You know, we went through this exercise last year of coming up with the core values of the company. And one of the values that we are editing, we had them before, and one of the values that we toyed around with was innovative. And then we looked and found out that 80% of technology companies have a core value called innovative. And so I didn't think that would be a very innovative value. And so we centered on this word bold. And bold is beyond innovative because it takes creativity and intelligence. It also takes guts. I remember you and I hashing through 5 years ago what to do with our balance sheet. And I think people would say what we did was pretty gutsy and bold. Tell the audience and folks in general, you know, you founded this company, you've taken it through many ups and downs. This is the biggest by far. Why is it important to be bold as you go through a digital transformation of your organization?
Consensus thinking won't result in success in a world of 400 million competitive companies. If you walk down the street and you ask 100 people, do you think I should do this? And most of them agree with you, then there's no way for you to break free of that competitive dilemma. So, you know, the idea that we should sell products and take the dollar, or the idea that we should speak English, or the idea that we should work in offices, or the idea that we should use a computer, these are all great strategies when everybody else disagrees with you, when you're the first. But at some point, if you find yourself stuck in a competitive dilemma, when you can't break free, then you have to do something that's bold, and that means doing something that if you walk down the street and ask 100 people, do they think you should do it? If 95 of them said no, then probably it's a getting to be popular, bold decision. If 99 of them said no, then it might work for you. It might just work. And the example of that is you invest in Amazon when everybody thinks Amazon is a stupid idea going bankrupt, and that's when you'll make 30x your money. And in the summer of 2020, every single person in the world agreed that Amazon was critical to the civilization and you should buy Amazon stock. Nobody made any money. It's the worst performing, right, of the Magnificent Seven. So you have to do something which is bold, and you have to, you have to think from first principles. Like bold starts with a B. Look at our logo, and where do you see the B? When we shrunk our brand to strategy, we created space in our brand for a bold innovation, the bold innovation on your lapel pin. If you think about the 10 most popular symbols in the world, think about the most popular iconic symbols in the world. I dare you to think through 10 and list them. I think most people would say the dollar. They might say the cross, right? They might say, they might say the Islamic crescent. And that B. I don't know where we sit in the top 10, but I'm quite sure that we catapulted ourselves into having a corporate logo that is one of the 10 most recognizable symbols on Earth. And with 8 billion people competing for recognition, that's no mean feat. Our decision with Bitcoin was driven out of experience. We had 30 years of business experience. It was driven out of realization, right? We embrace reality, and after you tried, there's this phrase, this joke about, Winston Churchill said it about Americans. He said, Americans, they'll do the right thing after they've tried everything else. And we had tried everything else. And when you've tried everything that's not bold, when you've tried everything conventional, then you either have the courage to take a risk, or you suffer this life of quiet desperation, and you meet, in a mediocre fashion, you fade from history. And we decided that we were going to not fade from history in a mediocre fashion. We had to take a risk, and that risk was to recapitalize the company on an asset which, on paper, from first principles, looks better. It looks like a big tech monopoly. It looks like digital gold. If it's digital gold, it's 100 times better than gold. If it's the next unrecognized digital monopoly, it's going to grow by 10 to 30. Right? Find something everybody needs, nobody can stop, and few people understand, right? Where most people just don't agree with you. And when it's the non-consensus thing from first principles, there is an opportunity. And we've seen these things throughout the history of business. We were inspired and we were catalyzed by our history and by the events of 2020, and I think the results speak for themselves.
Well, thank you for that. And you also did all of us a service. I think you explained to a lot of our partners, our banking partners, our legal partners, our technology partners, why we constantly ask you to come along for a ride and do the impossible. And when you give us ideas that everyone else has done, we say no. Do something that no one else has done. And I think it's a great concept for capital markets, for corporations, but we'll talk about why it's an important concept for data too. One of the lesser known things that have happened over the last 5 years with strategy is how we've used AI and Gen AI specifically, to come up with our strategy. And I sometimes tell people that you're one of the biggest power users of Gen AI, and that our digital transformation, our capital transformation was AI-driven. And people are a little surprised to hear that. Share with the group exactly the story of how you used AI and how the companies used it to transform our capital structure.
You know, when the first chat programs came out, they were cute, and then they started getting smart. And when the first image generators came out, they were cute, and then they started getting smart, and then they started getting better. And I was drawn into the world because I wanted to be able to communicate messages. So first we would generate images, and eventually I found that computer-generated portraits of myself are actually better looking than I am.
No.
But humble brag. No. Actually, the more important point is, if you wanted to make a point, it was a lot easier to put myself on Mount Everest with a computer-generated image than doing it in the real world. And so we started to generate content much more rapidly. Then I realized I could use AI as an editor, and it became my editor. And you know, you want to make a sophisticated point, but you're in a hurry, and you have people say, "Do you run your own X account?" Yeah, I run my own X account. I create my own post, and it's like, well, aren't you worried about misspelling or mistyping, or like, can you know, is that the right way to use the hyphen? And I found, well, it'd be great if I had an intelligent editor, and I started using it as an editor. Then I realized, you know, my job is to have an opinion on, does this bill influence Bitcoin and how? So when they drop a 200-page bill, I realized if I could put that into AI, summarize it, query it, and compare it, I could think 100 times faster, maybe 1,000 times faster. And I began using AI to accelerate my ability to think. Now, that's pretty important if there's 100 bills and someone wants to know, what about this, what about that, what do you think about that document? And you know, I can't afford to have we've had 40 people in the marketing department or working for me, and if I ask the question, I might wait a few days or a week to get the answer. But I don't have a week or a few days. I have sometimes 2 minutes. If you want to be relevant, sometimes something gets, if Elon Musk posts something, you have 60 seconds. The world requires that you be smarter, faster, stronger. So I started using it in that way, and then not a long time ago came along deep research, and that was a big aha moment, because first I used an order of magnitude more computing power, and then I used 2 orders of magnitude more computing power. And then I started asking questions via deep research. Well, how would you design this security, or is this possible? I have a question which would require 5 lawyers and 3 financiers to answer, and it would take them 2 weeks to answer. And I would put this chat in deep research mode, and I would grind it, and it would grind through 50 sources and work for 15 minutes and come back. And it doesn't necessarily give me the answer that I can immediately act on, but it gives me somewhere between 80 and 95% of what I need. And then I take that to the finance department. I take that to the legal department. So a lot of our innovative capital markets activity, things like Strife, things like Strike, we had to fight through all sorts of complicated legal issues, complicated financial issues. You know, we did a convertible preferred stock. It had never been done before. We listed it on NASDAQ. It had never been done before. We attached a shelf registration to it. It had never been done before. We made it a perpetual dividend, good for 1,000 years. It had never been done before. We created a perpetual call option. It had never been done before. We put a shelf registration on it, never been done before. Now, when you go to 25 professionals with 30 years experience, say, I want to do 20 things that have never been done before, and I want to do them in a hurry. I need an answer in the next 48 hours, right? That creates a very stressful situation. And what I found with AI is the AI doesn't have a lot of ego. I can ask it a question. I can tell it that's not right. I can tell it that's stupid. I can disagree. I can work through my issues. And then after I've gone through 20 iterations, which would have ground human beings into a pulp, I can then take the 95% answer to the finance team and the legal team and the bankers and the market and say, I think this is plausible. And I don't just share the result, I share the link. I say, go into the chat, I've uploaded 27 documents. I've actually had to grind through case law of every public company that's ever done this before. I've analyzed the finance. I think it's more likely than not this will work. And at that point, when you've taken the process to 95%, you can then get to a result and build consensus. And half of AI is about consensus and doing it in a cheerful, constructive way, right? When I'm yelling, I prefer to yell at the AI, right? I really want to do this. No, you can't. Well, what if I do this? No, well, and eventually you get to a point where maybe you can move forward. And I can say, with a high degree of confidence, right? A lot of the things we've done in the capital markets, we just couldn't have done that. Those two preferred stocks, Strife and Strife, are the first AI-designed securities that I know of, certainly in our industry. So I've been inspired by it, and I think we're just scratching the surface. That the next step will be to go from deep research, which is where by the way, I went from the $20 a month, you get a few of these things, to the $200 a month subscription where you get unlimited, to the we're cutting you off because even unlimited, we think you're burning our silicon. I think we're going to go from deep research to agents where I just say, hey, you work for me, scan everything in the Twitter sphere today about knowing what I think and tell me what I should say, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do it. And then scan the capital markets. I tend to ask questions like, look at every single publicly traded company and give me the open interest divided by their market cap and the liquidity and the trend of the liquidity, and then tell me where we stand. Click. Okay. Yeah, and the next step will be, well, why don't you just do that every day? And then, so what I think I've learned is we're going to consume exponentially more silicon and exponentially more electricity and digital power because that's the way you break through to the new idea and the new market. And you just can't go the 20th century way. You can't even do things the way we did it 3-4 years ago. In the words of Magnus Carlsen, it's too weak, it's too slow. You have to be faster and stronger and smarter.
I get the extraordinary pleasure of being on the receiving end of Saturday morning messages from Mike. Look at my AI chat, and it tends to be like 4 pages long, and I read it at 4 in the morning while I'm working out. And you're quite constructive and cheerful in those chats with the AI, which is a little different than sometimes, but I feel like it's made you a nicer, more cheerful, constructive person in general. And so I think there are other civilization-level benefits of AI. It's going to cause people to be nicer to each other. What are some of the other big things you think AI will do to the world?
I think it's, if we think about classic economics, the economy was about land, labor, and capital, and you use those 3 components to create prosperity. And I think we're living in this digital transformation where digital land, or digital property, digital labor, digital capital. And it's, you know, it's pretty clear that the agents in cyberspace are going to work 1 billion times harder or 1 billion times faster for us all. It's pretty clear that those bots will be put into robots, and the cars are going to drive themselves. And sometime in our lifetime, we'll have talking, walking, useful robots. And so the robots are coming to the real world. The agents are coming to the cyber world. You're going to see an explosion of digital labor. I think we'll need less physical property, and we'll need less physical labor. There'll be a dramatic decrease in the physical labor component in the economy. And of course, if the robots and the agents are doing a lot of work, they don't need as much real estate. They don't need as much physical property. What they do need, digital property, intellectual property, right? So the access to proprietary data. Turns out that ask the AI a question, you know, give me the 30-day call rate, you know, selling call options at the money. And it's really good at calculating it, but it gets shut down if it's scraping a website. It needs a clean data feed. And so I'm either hyper intelligent or I'm stupid as can be. It'll give me the absolute wrong answer if it has to scrape a website, but it'll give me a perfect answer when I give it clean data. So digital property in the form of data feeds, you know, what is the vector trajectory of every iPhone in the world right now? If you give that to the AI, you get some interesting results. What is the status, the open interest of every public company everywhere in the world right now? You'll get interesting insights. So I think the companies that have digital properties, right? It's not so much the Bessemer process for creating steel. It's not a static, you know-how. The AI figures out how to do things statically pretty well. What it doesn't do is it doesn't figure out, you know, how do I extract real-time proprietary data feeds? And so I think that the value of data, which you know all of our customers have, the value of proprietary data, is going to explode. And you got to think about, you know, can I license my data to someone else so that they can plug it into an AI so they can change their product? And I think digital capital is, you know, which is Bitcoin, is very important. When you come away from these things, you think, if I plug digital intelligence and digital labor into digital property. By the way, property is heterogeneous. There's 10,000 proprietary databases, just like real world property is heterogeneous. Tokyo real estate is different than New York. So digital property is a whole set of thousands of heterogeneous but very valuable things in the world. The digital labor and the digital intelligence, less heterogeneous. You know, there are going to be some monster models and everybody's going to use them. Digital capital, Bitcoin, homogeneous. You know, a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin, and what you're going to see is companies are going to create extraordinary products, extraordinary services. There's going to be a 100x increase in productivity. There's going to be a 100x increase in everything. We're going to produce more of everything in every way that everybody can imagine. And if you're a corporation, if you're a private actor, if you're a capitalist, what are you going to do with that capital? You're going to roll it into Bitcoin. The AIs are going to want to buy the Bitcoin. The companies are going to buy the Bitcoin. The demand is going to be for the most scarce, desirable, liquid, fungible capital asset. And so the explosion of productivity with digital property and digital intelligence and digital labor will create an explosion in demand for digital capital. And I think all of those are just mutually beneficial trends. And if you're a company, you just want to figure out how your shareholders benefit, how your customers benefit, how your employees benefit from this trend.
Awesome. So last question. You've been wildly successful in your career. the last 5 years, Strategy has been the most successful company in the world, arguably, because of a digital transformation of our capital. Other than buy Bitcoin, what advice do you have for folks here who want to transform themselves and their companies?
I think, it's pretty clear. You want to harness digital intelligence and harness digital capital to drive your costs down, drive your productivity up, improve your products, improve your services. You want to look for that revolutionary new product. You want to look for that revolutionary new service. You want to improve your securities. You want to revolutionize your capital structure. What I say oftentimes is, yeah, you want to 10x your money, you buy Bitcoin. You want 100x your money, you buy Bitcoin with somebody else's money. You want 1,000x your money, you buy Bitcoin with someone else's money, and then you lever the Bitcoin. And so my advice is, think about innovative ways to build the most powerful capital structure in the world. And that'll be the subject of my talk later today, while you're thinking about ways to actually build the most compelling transformational products or services in this world. And if you can't do that, at the very least, make sure that you yourself are 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times smarter, faster, stronger. Or if you happen to be like me and you post pictures, make sure you're 1,000,000 times better looking and put yourself on the top of Mount Everest.
Well, Michael, thank you for all you've done for all the individuals in this room and in the world, for Bitcoin, for intelligence, for data, for software. Such a pleasure working with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun. Why don't we just do one more round of applause for the Giga Chad himself, Michael Saylor. So you're all wondering where this is going, aren't you? Let's talk about how do we digitally transform our data and how we will enable you all to take the lessons of what our company has done, what AI provides, to digitally transform your organizations. Okay? I want to tell you 3 stories first. I'll start with, and these are stories about, I'll call it 3 different revolutions. I'll start with the consumer revolution. Prior to World War I, if you wanted to buy an apple, you might go to the grocery store down the street. If you want to buy a cake, you might go to the baker around the corner. Place your cake order, take you a couple days. And if you wanted to buy a shirt, nice shirt, you might go talk to your tailor, a block down the street, and say, hey, make me a shirt. And you get it in about a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on where you are in your shirt pecking order with your tailor. And everybody's happy. So that's a pretty good process. World War II came along, and post-World War II in the US came the era of the consumer revolution. With the consumer revolution came the advent of grocery stores, supermarkets, hypermarkets, and automobiles, suburban living, and you could go hop in your car and you could go to one store that had 4 or 5 different apples to choose from. You could have an entire bakery section and you could get cakes without having to order them. And you'd have a clothing section where you could have 5 shirts, 10 pants, cool sneakers, and selection broadened. And it was great. And what made that happen was not because the farmers and the bakers and the tailors got better. What made that happen was the rise of a supply chain, an industrial supply chain, right? So then from the farmer would go to a wholesaler, it would go to a warehouse, to a delivery company who would bring the goods to the supermarket, and everybody was happy. Great consumer choice, so much more was available. Perfect. Except for the maker, the farmer, the baker, the tailor. They didn't get more money. In fact, they got less. And as you got into the 1950s, they went from 90 cents on the dollar for that apple, went to the farmer, to 50 cents on the dollar on that apple going to the farmer. But you were happy, you're the consumer, you got more apples. You're pretty happy, you got to go one place. And then what happened after that was the technology transformation of the consumer revolution, the rise of e-commerce, the ability to go to one place online, order an apple, 5 apples, get them to your place, shipped door to door in an hour. You don't even have to leave your house. And man, if you wanted a cake, you wanted a Hostess Twinkie, you could get that thing too. Right to your doorstep, whenever you want. You pay a little bit for delivery. And you want a shirt? Now you have 1 million shirts to choose from, as many as you could want. Beautiful. Consumers are happy. Sure, maybe the apple took a month to get from its farmer to your destination. In the winter months, it takes even longer than that, right? Sure, maybe that Hostess Twinkie has been filled with preservatives, so it could be sitting on the shelf for a year or 2 years, and by the time you eat it, it doesn't at all resemble the cake. And sure, that shirt you got, maybe it was shipped from another country, and then you can wear it for a year, you launder it a couple of times, starts to fall apart. But we're all happy. We're in a better place, aren't we? That's the consumer revolution. Now I'll tell the story about the financial revolution. Many of you here know this story really well, and I'm going to pick at the words I use and say, you didn't say that exactly right. And many of you here are getting new information and exposed to this story. Let's go back to pre-World War I. You went into that grocer, the baker, or the tailor. You paid with dollar bills, with coins, and you were happy. Sure, you had a purse or a wallet, or if you were buying something bigger, you had a suitcase full of bills, but you're happy, worked pretty well. And never did you really think to yourself, what's behind this? Because you knew behind that most currencies around the world were backed by gold. The US government, Argentinian government, Turkish government, all of them, one-for-one gold backing to that. And never did you really think about inflation, because the global production of gold outside of gold rushes is 2 or 3%. So never did you think, that apple is going to go from costing 5 cents to 10 cents to 50 cents, because it didn't really ever happen. What ended up happening after that, as you all know, is as the US got off the dollar standard, or the US dollar got off the gold standard, the US became the world reserve currency, the dollar became the world reserve currency. Then it went from 2% inflation to 7% inflation over the course of the last 100 years. And as you sit here today, you do think about what's backing that dollar. You do think about the fact that things cost twice as much from one year to the next. Even more interesting, and additionally, as the consumer revolution occurred, came the rise of credit. You didn't really want to have to carry the coins and the dollar. You want to show off and go tell the bartender or the grocer, hey, put it on my tab. That was fun. Put it on my tab. And so they had tabs with you. You had tabs with hundreds of vendors. And away rose the credit card industry. Diners Club, American Express, Visa, MasterCard, a lot of our customers. It was a great thing. Now you could buy more than you had money for, but it was an immediate transaction. And what happened on the back of that? The middleman, somebody in there, takes 3.5%. You get some points. You're all happy as a consumer. The credit card is there. And as long as you pay off the credit card every month, it costs nothing to you, essentially. It's awesome, right? In addition, to pay off those credit cards, you keep your money now with a bank, right? Put your money in a bank. You don't even ever have to worry about dollar bills and coins or anything like that. You put your money in the bank. They hold your money. They pay off your credit card every single month. You're happy. Sure, the bank takes that money and gets 10% on it. They give you back 0.5%, but you don't care about that. You've got the friction-free world of the consumer revolution and the digital revolution. Someone else has your money, someone else takes care of your transactions, you can be oblivious. Of course, you know what really happens. We're all living it. Inflation happens. Somebody has your money. Somebody might be able to seize your money. In the worst case, somebody takes 13% off your money, and you're oblivious and you're okay with that. And of course, you all know where this is going. Bitcoin solves that problem. Bitcoin solves the problem of inflation. And Bitcoin solves the problem of how money flows across the financial system, across the world, because it's fully decentralized. That's my second story. Many of you know that story. Third story is the data revolution. I love these pictures. They're AI generated, but you get the idea, so don't pick on is that really a real computer or not, because it's not. I lived in this time. This is the 1980s, right? Remember, every home had a computer, and eventually every employee at every company had a computer. And what did those computers do? They generated data and information abundant. All your financial information went into an ERP system. Your supply chain information went into that ERP system. Your CRM system created customer data, marketing data. Your HR system had employee data, payroll data. Information abound as an asset of your organizations, and you needed to be able to access that data. And so what did you do? You bought middleware systems, ETL, extraction, transformation, and loading systems, data warehouses. You paid partners and consultants to implement them so you could access your data more quickly. Of course, made sense. You essentially paid a 25% tax on your data to access your data. You said, hey, this makes sense though, right? Data is my most important asset. I'm going to go put it into someone else's system, into their server, and I'm going to pay them 25% along with a partner to access my data. And that is the world we live in today, and everyone says that's normal, right? I pay the middleware vendor, I pay the data warehouse vendor, I pay Strategy, the BI vendor, I pay some large systems integrator around the world for my data. Makes sense. It's worth it. So it's the price of commerce. It's the price of doing business. I think you get where this is going a little bit. The consumer revolution, the capital revolution, and now the data revolution have a cost. And the cost goes from the artisan to the industry to the internet in the consumer revolution. I'm not sure the internet is the final answer to that revolution. I don't really need 8,000 shirts to choose from when I'm online. I just want the shirt for me. I'm pretty sure Bitcoin is the answer to the capital revolution. So what is the answer to the intelligence revolution? Now you know, they say strategy is the answer. So what are the keys to this revolution first? I believe, number one, we need to get back to valuing the maker. A lot of you in this room are makers. You tinker, you create things, you invent things, right? Don't you want to own that? I mean, if you're the farmer, actually producing the apple, shouldn't you get 90% and not 5% or 10%? Right? If you're the laborer and you get paid $15 an hour, don't you want that 15 bucks? Don't you want to not get it deflated 7% a year? Don't you not want to have to pay a financial institution 5% or 10% or a credit card company? Keep your money, right? And if you're the company that produces your data, you're the maker of that data, don't you want to have control over that and own that? And of course, the opposite of that is minimize the middleman, right? Look, a lot of you work for the middleman. A lot of you are middlemen. I've been a middleman. But let's give value back to the maker and take it away from the shippers, the financial institutions, and all of the data companies in between. Self-custody your assets, right? This is a very simple thing. What you own should be yours. You've got money, you've got Bitcoin, self-custody it. It doesn't really mean literally self-custody, which I'll get into a big debate on with our Bitcoin. Right? You can pay a custodian a small amount, but you got to own that. You got to know that that's your Bitcoin, not theirs. Right? Your data, you could pay a cloud hyperscaler because they'll more efficiently house your data or transact your data. Make sure it's your data. Don't give them the rights to then go train an AI with your data. And if you want them to do so, as Mike said, sell your data. In fact, that's a great way to make money. But own your data. Maximize the speed. You know, just because a Twinkie shows up at your front door doesn't mean it hasn't been on a shelf for a year. You want, when that thing gets out of the oven, to get into your mouth as fast as possible. Right? Same with your data. You guys deal with this, right? Like, oh, I'm going through this 2-year data warehouse implementation project to put my data warehouse in the cloud. I'm going to pay somebody $20 million so I can give immediate access to my users to their data. There's a little irony in that. How many of you here are BI people who are like, yeah, I'm so ready to do this, but I'm waiting for my digital transformation of my data, and I'm spending 2-3 years on it. And its last one is personalize the experience. Right, what's nice about e-commerce, and it's getting there, is it recommends things to me when I want them. I like that. Right? TikTok is the ultimate example. It uses AI to surface to me exactly in an uncanny way the video I didn't know what I wanted to see. I didn't know I wanted to see. I didn't know I wanted to watch. I didn't even know I cared about honey badgers and lions. And it just shows up right then and there. And then you see 18 other honey badger videos. Why shouldn't it work that way with your data? Why shouldn't your end user get to see exactly what they want to see before they know they want to see it, where they want to see it? Instead of, in most of our organizations, you've got 1,000 employees and 1 million reports. And they're just trying to figure out what to look at. And so ultimately, what do? They do nothing. So how do we solve this problem? Of course, the answer is Gen AI. First of all, Gen AI makes this problem harder. If you want to build a Gen AI agent that makes decisions based on reliable, secure, scalable data, right, that is just in time, that's real time, that's hard. That's what all of your CEOs and boards and CFOs are asking you to do. I want you to automate the company using Gen AI, and I don't want you to tell me it's going to take 2 years because my data is not in good shape. I want you to get me this immediately, done tomorrow. And you're like, oh, shit, how am I going to do that? Not only does it do that, Gen AI creates more data in your organization than you've ever had before. So you happily go to your hyperscalers and to your cloud providers and you say to them, my data is going to explode 10x. What's going to happen? They're like, well, you'll just have to pay me 10x more. More data, more information, not getting to the place where it wants to go. The good thing is, not often in life does something create the problem and something provides the solution. Gen AI does provide the solution. What else can you have that processes faster than you ever had before, in memory, and gets you the information, personalized, exactly how you want it, right? Gen AI provides the solution to the consumer revolution, to the financial revolution, and now the data revolution. And this gets really exciting, right? We have, and you've heard Mike talk about it, internalized Gen AI into the company. You've seen it with our capital markets decisions. Many of you as customers see it with how much faster we're providing technology in a more efficient way. Our entire engineering team, and I would like to think our entire organization, thinks Gen AI first, how to do things faster. But ultimately, what it's going to do, and what we're going to do, is provide a product that solves all these problems, gives you real-time access to your data, gets rid of the middleman, and allows you to fully personalize a suggestion to every single problem you've ever had in your enterprise and your organization. And so I want to introduce the first ever within strategy Gen AI created product to solve a Gen AI problem with a Gen AI solution. And that product's called Mosaic. And this is going to change the data world. Not just analytics, not just BI, not just data warehousing, all of the data world. You're going to hear Saurabh talk more about this tomorrow, so I'm going to leave it at that. But the digital revolution that this company has been through, the balance sheet, the awesome employees, allow us to create a product that is going to change the data world. And it's going to solve these issues that are the key to the data revolution. You, as the maker of your data, get to keep your data. You, as the maker of your data, don't need to go through a middleman to move your data, to store your data, to access your data. It'll all happen immediately in memory. You don't have to give your data to anybody. You own it. You can sell it if you want. You don't have to transfer your assets. It'll be real time, seconds, and it's going to be a fully personalized experience. Think your end users, data consumers in your organization will be able to get the answer to any question. Your agents will be able to be automated based on your data without waiting 2 years, without waiting 2 months. Maybe it's about 2 days to put the pieces in place. And that's what we're going to do. We are going to own and win the data revolution. That's what strategy is going to do. Let me talk about some customers and how they've started to pave the way for this. Some of you have probably never heard of Diageo, but I would guess 90% of you, maybe more, will partake in Diageo if you didn't last night, tonight. Diageo is the brand behind Johnny Walker, Bullet Bourbon. Anyone here a tequila person? Don Julio? I'm a tequila person. Captain's Morgan, Guinness, and they're a customer of strategy. They're a $20 billion global company. And what they did last year with us is they moved strategy to the cloud. And by doing this, they increased performance to their end user 25%. People who are consuming data in their organization using strategy in the cloud, you're able to get access to information 25% faster. And as a result, the end user, the consumer, was happier. Your NPS scores of their users of data in their organization went up 3x. They also decommissioned outdated systems. They decided to value the maker, minimize the middleman, personalize the end user experience using strategy. So for that reason, I want to congratulate Diageo. We've got some folks here in the room from Diageo for winning our Customer Experience Award for 2025. And I encourage you all to use Diageo products tonight. Next company I want to talk about is Cisco. Many of you who are watching us online, I almost guarantee, have a Cisco product in between me talking and your experience, and it's immediate. Cisco is a $50 billion worldwide company. They were one of the most important companies in the 90s, in the internet era, and they still are today. And they're also one of the top 3 companies to work for in the world, according to Fortune. 10 years ago, they had a data problem. In their finance organization, it took 5 days to operationally close their books, which meant that in a 90-day quarter, for an entire 5-day period, they were flying blind. They didn't know what was happening in the company operationally. They were not able to provide their finance and their operational organizations access to their own data. 10 years ago, they implemented strategy, MicroStrategy at that point, and they cut that from 5 days, B-Day 5, Business Day 5, to Business Day 1. An 80% improvement in their close process, giving people access to their data faster and more accurate and more reliable. 10 years later, they're going through another major transformation, and that's the AI transformation. They're providing users that information via reports, via queries. Now they're going to provide their folks that information via generative AI. They're working with us on that, and it's incredible to see the results. People in finance can just ask a data question and get the data answer immediately, and know that the data is reliable. It's coming from a governed source, a scalable source. And they've also integrated that experience into their chat, WebEx, of course. So you can go into WebEx and you can not even talk to a person, just ask a question, get access to the data. They have maximized speed to data. And for that reason, I want to congratulate Cisco for winning Strategy's 2025 Innovation Award. Next company is one of my favorite. I'm not allowed to have favorites. Actually, I'm allowed to have favorites. Emirates, if anyone has ever had the pleasure of flying Emirates, whether it be coach or business class, it's a luxury, elevated experience. Some of you probably flew here on an Emirates airline. It's great. What a great experience. What many of you don't know is Emirates has a subsidiary called Dinata. And some of you know this because you fly a lot, and the person that checks you in at the airport might actually have a Dinata badge or a Dinata lanyard. Dinata is one of the largest high-quality airline ground operations companies in the world. And they provide IT systems. They serve 330 airlines across 136 airports. And I love this number. They serve 337 meals a day. If you've ever had a meal on an Emirates airline, even in coach class, it's pretty darn good, right? And they're serving meals across all the airlines. And today, they use strategy across their entire organization. Maintenance, in-flight personalized experiences. Their pilots do a pre-flight check on a mobile application that's powered by strategy. So you can feel good, by the way, if you love the company, that your pilots are using strategy to make sure that their flight is safe. Dynamic pricing using strategy. And what they're going to do is they're going to implement Mosaic because they believe to better personalize the experience, to better self-custody their data, and to better move the data without a middleman across the organization to get even better. And so for that, I want to congratulate Emirates for winning 2025's Strategy Global Business Impact Award. All right. Next, I want to thank our sponsors. I mentioned these folks earlier today. Some great partners. Mike talked about the digital transformation of our capital structure and talking to folks and them all saying no, 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 no. Some of these folks are the ones that said no, and then we flipped them to yes. But they have really helped us innovate in the technology space and in the capital space. So thank you to the titanium sponsors, AWS, Cantor, and J. Wood Capital Advisors. Thank you to our platinum sponsors, Active Cyber, Barclays Benchmark, and Power BI, Google Cloud, Morgan Stanley, TD, XBTO, and 66 Degrees. Thank them all. And I encourage you, if you have time, and you're a software company, or sorry, you're interested in software, to go visit some of their booths. If you're interested in capital transformation in your company, go talk to some of these folks. They've been extraordinary partners to us along the ride. Also, our gold, silver logo sponsors, I want to thank them all. They've made this event successful, but they've also made us strategy successful. And if you're a shareholder or if you're a user of strategy, these are the folks behind us that have helped us along the way. So I want to end with a few thoughts. If you want to digitally transform your company, and I know 10 years ago this word was overused, now I think it's the most appropriate word for what we've done in strategy. We've digitally transformed our capital structure. You want to do the same, we have the playbook. You want to digitally transform your technology organization or your data, we have the solution. But, as you heard what Mike said, to digitally transform, you have to be bold. You have to say yes when 95 out of 100 people say no. You have to zig when everyone else zags. And I would argue in the data world, everyone is zigging now. Everyone wants to go to the simple, I'll buy everything from a hyperscaler. I will do the same thing as all of my competition is doing with my data. I'm putting it into a hyperscaler cloud. I'm using the hyperscaler data warehouse solution. I'm using the hyperscaler BI solution. I am doing what all of the AI bots will do. That's not going to work. I think we all agree data is your most important asset. Be bold. When we tell you, do something no one else is doing, you should do it. That's why you're here in this room. You're here to get some new ideas. I go to these conferences, you pick up 2 or 3 nuggets. When everyone tells you to do something, that's when you know it's not the right thing to do. Data transformation. This is why a lot of you are here. By the way, even if you're a Bitcoiner, you've got personal data, you've got data in your company, you have data in your 401k, you've got data in your investments portfolio, right? Here are the 5 principles. Value the maker. Don't forget, you're the maker of your data. You're the farmer of the apple. You're the laborer of your Bitcoin and your dollars. It's your data. It's no one else's. So get rid of the middleman. They're not there to help you. They're not there to speed things up. They're there to take a tax and a toll on you. Own your data, self-custody your data. Take speed over everything else. The next time someone tells you it's going to take 2 years to do something, tell them no. The next time some SI comes and says, I'm going to charge you $20 million in a year and a half to put in a system to give you access to your data, tell them no, it's my data. I'm not going to do that. And personalize the experience for the end user. Free yourself. Free yourself from the middleman. Free yourself from paying the tax and the toll. You've done it. Many of you have seen us do it. We've freed ourselves with Bitcoin. Mosaic will help free you too. This is about freedom. It's a big word, but that's what we're talking about. That's what we're doing. That's what strategy cares about. Freedom with your money, freedom with your Apple, and freedom with your data. So thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate your time today.